I want to suggest you the following way of thinking about Zionism. I would suggest that if someone were to put up a grant today and offer to Arthur Hertzberg's intellectual heir to write the Zionist Idea Volume 2, that such a person would have an enormous challenge. That to look at what's been written in the Jewish world for the past, let's say even 50 years, and to try to put together even a volume that's significantly thinner than the volume that Arthur Hertzberg put together, what would you actually put in? I mean, who would you cite? Who in the last 50 years has said anything particularly interesting about what Zionism is? Zionism, it seems to me, has now become basically a rant about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And people can be divided about where they fall on that issue, but we have allowed Zionism to become only about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is to say something along the lines of, and you'll forgive me for using an American metaphor rather than an Australian one, only because I know a tiny bit about America and less than nothing about Australia. It would be like saying that in the United States is about the conflict in Afghanistan. Or 3 months ago, the United States is about Iraq and Afghanistan. Yes, the United States 3 months ago was at war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and those are major political and military issues. There are also major economic issues. They are issues of tremendous political volatility and so on and so forth. But anybody who thinks that that's what America is about knows nothing about American history, has read none of the great classics of America, culturally, politically, philosophically, and so forth. Anybody who thinks that America is about Afghanistan simply just knows nothing about what the United States of America both, I think, claims to be and even is. The same thing, I think, is true of the state of Israel. If the only lens through which we look at the state of Israel, or even the primary lens through which we look at the state of Israel, is the lens of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, then we have allowed the Zionist conversation, which was once very rich, and was once about economics, socialism versus capitalism, and it was about culture, and it was about the place of the diaspora, and it was about the question of whether the Jews needed a political entity or a cultural center, and it was about a whole array of other very important issues. We've allowed that very rich conversation not only to be hijacked, but to be sort of run into the gutter to the point that it's extremely uninteresting. And as you know, when things get uninteresting, they tend to get somewhat histrionic. There's the story of the rabbi whose notes were found in shul after the end of services, and he had written in the margins of his sermon notes, "Point weak here, yell like hell." But I think that we tend to yell like hell not only when our point is weak, we tend to yell like hell when we're completely bored. And I think that we've started boring each other. We've certainly bored a lot of other people. So how might we inject some sense of intellectual and philosophic sophistication into the Zionist argument in a way that actually might bridge the two camps that disagree so dramatically about what, if anything, to do about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?